Hi, you know what? Terrible games are interesting, as long as you don't play them, but only learn of them. So, watch the video, but do not seek the games out, they're not worth it. Tell me, what comes to your mind when you think of Hooters? That's right, muscle cars. Yup, Hooters is definitely not known for anything else, anything at all. It's muscle cars and muscle cars only. So, Hooters Road Trip is a muscle cars racer, and yeah, this time it's not a joke, and you're racing all around the US in races sponsored by the Hooters. And winning in each state rewards you with a quote-unquote meeting with real Hooters girls. Well, real as in pre-recorded on video, but actually really coming from Hooters in the states that the particular races took place in. It sounds great, I know, seeing beautiful girls as a reward for good performance, but that's pretty much where the good stuff ends. Hooters Road Trip is a typical case of a cash grab game. It's not a great racer, but its T rating and a rather cheap price of $10 only made it more enticing and an instant pick for all the hormones buzzing teen boys. The times may change, the world may change with it too, but boys, well, boys will be boys. And teen boys will never be not horny. And yeah, I know what I said. And back then, when the internet was not as quote-unquote friendly place to young minds, they didn't care much to check if the game was any good, they were more than happy to settle on anything as long as it had girls with big boobies. While at its heart Hooters Road Trip is a racer, it's not a great one and there's a lot wrong with it. I mean, it's not entirely unplayable like some budget games tend to be, but it's bad enough for you to focus on a different kind of racing. Racing to change the game, that is. There are 5 game modes in Hooters Road Trip and neither is great. So, in test drive mode, you get to pick a car out of 3 preset options and then drive on an empty stretch of the road to, well, test drive the car, I suppose. It may sound boring, but you've no idea how terrible it is. I feel that this game mode was slapped on late in development just to increase the number of available choices, as it really adds nothing to this already rather shoddy game. And why? Because the next mode is practice, which is exactly the same, but you get to choose out of more cars, pick your own track, turn traffic on or off, and race against CPU-controlled opponents all the way to the finish line, which, you know, makes it all fun. I'm sorry, I've misspoken, there's hardly anything fun about it. Quitting the game and playing something else after is. So yeah, there's that at least. Then we have the Road Trip, the main and titular mode, and while it's definitely the most feature-packed and robust one of them all, it's also quite bad. In theory, you're taking part in different races all across the US, and depending on how you did in these races, you'll get to unlock new cars and see some red-hot Hooters chicks. What I really mean is they'll appear on the screen for 2 or 3 seconds at most, and that's it. Poof, and they're gone. And along with them, the main reason you bought the game for. Cause the promise of hot scantily clad girls is gone as soon as those clips end. So, in seconds. But I suppose you get what you pay for, and $10 will not buy you a lot today, and it sure didn't in 2002 either. Well, at least the racing is working here as intended, and if you just never stop accelerating and keep holding it relentlessly as if your life depended on it, then with a bit of luck, you should be able to win each and every race without fail. Depending on the traffic, that is. It doesn't matter what car you pick or what track you're racing on, just never release the button, and all those 2-second clips will be yours to grab in no time. I'm obviously exaggerating, but not by a lot, and nothing can really save this trash from the heap in the scrapyard that it deserves to land on. Anyway, the next game mode on the table is License Mode, and in it you get to drive particular cars on country roads within a time limit. Time limit. Ooh, sounds scary. But trust me, one thing that can be said about Hooters Road Trip is that its difficulty does not come in the form of a timer, but in keeping the car driving straight. So time limit or not, you'll need to actually try to fail in this one to do so. And finally there's the Custom Road Trip mode, which is a variation on the original, allowing you to pick the locations to race in. With a slew of game modes, attractive and healthy girls to cheer you on, and a selection of 12 different cars, Hooters Road Trip can't really be that bad, can it? Well, it can, and it is. If you even ignore the fact that the cars have the tendency to spin out of control on a key press notice, you have to tap the direction buttons delicately as if they were made of snowflakes and dreams, ready to fall apart into 1,000 pieces with each too strong touch, then you'll experience another roadblock, namely traffic. I mean, it could be argued that it's semi-realistic, stopping you in your tracks and making it difficult to get back racing, but gods of video gaming, have mercy. The pace at which your car or the one you collided with reverses is just stuff of nightmares. If you were to leave the car and crawl backwards to the finish line, you'd do it twice as fast. Anyway, sadly, it's not all that the game fails at. cause collision detection is something special too. Sometimes it's too sensitive, registering a crash when you're clearly like a half a meter away from an oncoming traffic, and sometimes it fails to register obvious collisions, just letting you carry on as if nothing had ever happened. It's as shoddily made as the rest of this abomination is, and as unpredictable as the turning. Well, it is what it is. And since we're here to talk about bad games, it seems that I've hit a jackpot with this one. Hooters Road Trip's presentation is also disappointing and definitely below 2002 standards. The graphics looks as if they were from a very early PlayStation title, and the sounds and music seem to be added on in the last minute. The first is literally maybe 3-4 different effects for the entire game, which given how many different cars there are and environment ambience is definitely not enough. And the second is a handful of slow and unfitting tracks, better suited for elevators than seemingly fast-paced racing. All in all, if you love racers, Hooters Road Trip will make you hate them, despite even the few and far between clips filled with well-endowed beauties. So, avoid it. Avoid it like the plague, which for all we know, it may actually cause. While CDI may have not been the most successful system out there, in fact it could probably be considered a failure, it had quite a few decent games in its small library. Sure, most of them were ports from other systems, but some happened to be originals, for better or worse. And one of the two most well-known ones was a nightmare spawned out of ungodly love between Philips and Nintendo, resulting in an abomination of a kid going by the name of Hotel Mario. In theory, it was supposed to be a light puzzle platformer, clearly targeting younger audiences and offering fun and not too demanding gameplay loop, filled with Mario-lore characters, light-hearted humor and fast action. Though it's a tad mood naming on my side, as I suppose action cannot really be slow now, can it? Anyway, Princess Peach invited two Plumber brothers to a picnic in the Mushroom Kingdom. No doubt to have them fight over her, cause she's that kind of a girl. I mean, it's not a surprise to anyone knowledgeable in the Mario lore, but the brothers have hots for her. And that she's low-key leading them on, while keeping Bowser as her secret lover / sugar daddy, for whom her loins burn with true red-hot fire. But as they arrived, in their best overalls and with trimmed mustaches no less, it appeared that the princess was gone, quote-unquote kidnapped by Bowser again. So now they have to embark on a long and incredibly unsatisfying adventure of closing doors in numerous hotels to reach the princess and save her. Now, where's the logic in that? I do not know, but if you're in love, and you do what the heart wants and not what the logic dictates. So our heroes have to go through 7 hotels split into smaller individual stages, closing hundreds if not thousands of doors, avoiding baddies or killing them by jumping on their heads. And if you'll try to tell me that it's not killing, cause it's Nintendo's game, I'd like to remind you that both Mario and Luigi are Italian, and neither pizzas nor pastas are foreign to them, so they do weigh a little. And by a little, I mean a lot. I'm by no means featherweight myself, I do weigh my fair share of apples, probably something like 120, maybe 150 apples, give or take, but it would still take like 2 of me to make one Mario. So imagine all that mass landing on your head. That's terrifying. Anyway, you'll find pickups behind some doors, and this can be either Mushroom, that allows you to take one hit without dying, or Fire Flower, which grants you a fireball, and you want to make sure to have it, as some enemies can only be defeated with fireballs. Now, it doesn't sound that bad so far, now does it? Well, it's probably the least bad game out of all in today's video. Don't worry though, it's still rather shitty, but for an entirely different set of reasons. It's not mechanically broken or completely unplayable, it's just odd, unpolished and incredibly repeatable. But let me explain all of them reasons in their particular order. Well, by odd I mean that while you do get to see similar enemies, so all the Goombas, Koopas and the likes, and you can play as Mario and Luigi, none of the skills that you've acquired in the original games would be useful here at all. Cause while you can run and jump same way you would in these, the feeling of it all is very alien, unlike any other game in the series. And the jumping itself is a tad floaty. And what I mean by all that is that you just never feel like you're in total control at all times, same you would in Super Mario World for instance. So, it's always feeling as if your survival was in part out of sphere of your control. It's uneasy on a player and not something you want in a game. Now, what I meant by it being unpolished. The graphics are pretty nice, right? Colorful, detailed and overall very in-lore. Yes, they are. But the animations of anything other than the character you're playing as seems to be running at like a quarter of FPS, making all the enemies, collectibles and projectile sprites uncomfortably unfitting. As if they were made for another game, using just a few frames each and then quickly ported to this one. For instance, to have it ready and released in time for, well, yes, for what? For the time to fail as Nintendo game perhaps. For many of you, different refresh for all the sprites may not be an issue, but for me it's very distracting. I just can't work with 2 frame rates on the same screen and at the same time, as all kinds of weird things happen in my head, and none of them are good. But if you think that it's the worst that the game has to offer, you've not seen the mid-level cutscenes. Now these, well, these are something special, and I wholeheartedly recommend that you seek Hotel Mario cutscenes on YouTube, as watching through all of them, even if you won't play the game itself, will change your life. And don't kid yourself, it will for sure be for the worse. But it's also something that you should definitely experience as a true bad games aficionado. And finally, Hotel Mario is probably the most repeatable game that you've seen all week. All you do is close doors. And I mean it. Not most of the time, not among other exciting things, all you do is close doors. Sure, they change the way they look between the hotels, but other than that, you just run between them, shutting them down, like someone suffering from a very severe case of OCD, unable to rest easy until all are shut. And if you happen to be that person in real life, then first of all, I'm sorry, I hope you have a way to manage the condition, and secondly, do not play this game. It will break you. Especially that despite seemingly targeting kids, Hotel Mario is unexpectedly demanding and to the point of feeling frustrating no less. The enemies will keep respawning and opening the doors, and they will do it all the freaking time. Like as soon as you think you're done with a particular level, 2 will respawn, open 5 doors, and then happily let you kill them, so that another 1 or 2 could show up above you and proceed opening more of these. I haven't mentioned the controls yet, have I? Well, they suck. They're not as bad as in some of the worst games, but not the most user-friendly either. I mean, who thought it would be a good idea to have shooting under a simultaneous 2-button press? I mean, it's fine most of the time, until in the heat of the moment it isn't. Then it just breaks your progress and game. So, like I said initially, Hotel Mario is the least shitty game out of all the shitty games I've spoken about to date. But it doesn't mean that it's a good one. I can see someone enjoying it for an odd half an hour or so every 5 to 10 years, but anything more than that, and the frustration will set in and never let go. Approach it at your own discretion. I wouldn't. I think it's only appropriate to follow up one of the least terrible bad games with one of the worst. And what better choice for that dishonor than Plumbers Don't Wear Ties? A game as bad as its title. So something that should have been aborted in the pre-planning phases of game design or cancelled at basically any moment during the development. It's a piece of trash that should have never come to be and pollute our reality with its despicable existence. It's a waste of time, effort, space, and even a good segment in a video such as this one. That space could have been easily used for a really bad, but not extremely trashy game. And Plumbers sure is one. I'd say that it's only a tiny bit better than the by now infamous on this channel Pro Soccer 2190, but honestly, there are days when I question it. Because it's just so many kinds of bad and awful all rolled into one that I fail to find appropriate vocabulary to express what I feel about it. It doesn't mean that I won't try though, but keep in mind that I might fail. So, imagine the worst FMV game that you've ever seen. Like, really try to visualize it, think of everything that it did bad, of all the annoyances, glitches, terrible controls, technical and factual issues or game-breaking bugs and unexplained errors. You get it? Do you see it yet? Okay, now that game, the one that you're thinking of, is most likely 10 to 25 million times better than Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Because not only we have plenty enough games covering the subject of plumbers with Mario as a protagonist, but also this one is really unnecessary. In short, for all intents and purposes, it is supposed to be a dating simulator. You know, one of those heavy on dialogue games in which you're trying to score with a person of opposing or same gender. Your call really. By getting to know them and lead them through intense, often hours-long discussions into a conclusion that they should in fact promptly undress and then give themselves to you, cause you're the best. And while I've no doubt about you being the absolute best, that's a given, these games are very rarely ambitious, often shoddily made just to cash in on loneliness or horniness of potential gamers and catering exclusively to either of the niches. Now, in theory, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is the same. It shows you a rather disappointing introductory video clip explaining the objective of the game. So you're John and a plumber, and you're looking for love, naturally in all the wrong places. This time, however, it's love in a slim and sexy form of an enchanting blonde beauty going by the name of Jane that you're after, and you feel that she might be the one. So from this point onward, it's all about pursuit of Jane. I honestly don't think that anyone will particularly like Plumbers, the game, not the workers, and it's a title best serving as an example of how oversaturated the video game market was in the early 90s with rushed, chipped and often shallow in story, overflowing with digitized graphics releases. What's worse, it's not really even an FMV game either, as it has maybe a couple of these sequences through its entire run and it's mostly showing still images with terrible voiceovers, sounding as if it was recorded over the phone and without any real voice actors. Just few randos found on the streets and paid in pizzas and beer to partake in. Although, I imagine people fed with pizzas and given refreshing beverages to perform much better, so perhaps even these were not involved. It's atrocious is what I'm saying here. I, with my unquestionably weird accent and pronunciation, could probably do a better job at it, and especially if said pizzas and beer were at stake. Anyway, the pictures are no better. They're all either badly filtered or awfully framed, often both, and generally speaking, visually unimpressive. For the most part looking like stock photos from the very inception of stock photos boom, when the first pages with pictures for sale appeared, and most of them were of very questionable quality and/or low resolution. I mean, if you were to take those pictures yourself with your mobile while being heavily intoxicated, at night and at an odd angle, barely able to keep yourself standing still, you'd do a much better job. I'm sure of it. Technicalities aside, how's the gameplay, you may wonder? Or you may not, because you have eyes and have been watching all along. And well, let me tell you, I don't know what they aimed here for, but I doubt that any marks were hit. You're supposedly after Jane, and at any given scene, so still picture with a voice behind it, you're given a set of choices that can take you that one step closer to making John a happy plumber, happy man. But as soon as you'll see all the possible answers, you'll know instantly which is correct, or rather, which of them the game wants you to pick. Because the quality of the writing leaves a lot to be desired, and I doubt that saying anything that the game suggests to anyone in real life would come off as anything else than extremely cringe. Anyway, since the answers are rather obvious, if you keep picking the right ones, finishing this uninspired third should be a breeze. A breeze of fresh air, no less, diluting the stink and unpleasant taste this cringe-fest leaves in your mouth, with each of its often random feeling scenes. But let's assume for a second that you're an adventurous type, that you wanna see where saying something infinitely more stupid than all the other options at hand may lead you. So you pick something silly, and it's clearly a bad answer. And... well, you know what? You guess where it leads to. Is it A, an instant game over and a sad face screen in sharp and unfitting coloring? B, a game giving you a talkover explaining why it was the wrong choice and then promptly returning you to the screen where you can make the right pick? Or C, no one ever dared picking the wrong option as it would create an imbalance in the very fabric of reality, spawn numerous black holes and end our universe in the process? Think it through, it's not an easy question. Yep, yes, you're correct, it is B. You can never make the wrong choice, cause whether you want to or not, all the decisions that you make, regardless of how mindless they are, always lead you to the end game. So, if you think about it, like give it 3-4% of your brain's processing power, can Plumbers Don't Wear Ties be even called a game at all? I mean, you have no influence on what will happen, no way to change anything in its story or even make meaningful mistakes. There are no consequences and it takes you on an incredibly boring, terribly acted out, unimpressive tale of misplaced love, weird haircuts, funky outfits and a lot of clicking. In fact, if you like to click your mouse and care very little for what happens after, as long as something does, then this may be your retro game of the year. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is supposedly an 18+ title, which is even more weird than the whole crappy rest of it. Because while it tackles a subject of romance, there are no obscenities in it, no serious violence and even no real nudity whatsoever. Sure, there's a shot or two here and there, a side boob at most maybe, but nothing full frontal. If I was you, I would not only avoid it, but also erase it from your memory forever, not to waste any of it on this title. But if I was you, then you would be me, and I'm not sure that you would like to work where I do. Especially that I'm directly under the devil and his demon queen. And trust me, it's not the devil that you should be afraid of, it's the wife. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties suck, and let's leave it at that, because this disappointment doesn't deserve much more. How do you like today's selection? Or more accurately, how do you dislike today's picks? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.